Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to ask you to consider something that might sound straight out of science fiction.
Yeah, but the question is, could it actually be a classified reality,
Mm,
especially when you look at advanced technology today?
exactly. And our mission here is to unpack this concept called remote neural monitoring. You might see it abbreviated as RNM.
We're basically going to walk through the fundamentals, the science behind it, drawing heavily on the work of Dr. Catherine Horton, who's a particle physicist.
And really, the goal here for you listening is to get some context so that if you ever hear someone talking about remote neural monitoring or maybe organized stalking or even microwave weapons.
Your first reaction isn't just, oh, they must be crazy.
Right. Dr. Horton actually calls understanding this stuff a kind of civic duty.
It's a strong phrase, but her point is you need to know what's scientifically possible, what weapons tech might exist, to even begin to assess those kinds of claims fairly.
That frame, the civic duty one, it really makes you pause, doesn't it? It
Yep.
feels significant. So what does Dr. Horton point to? Is there anything, out there in the public domain, any patterns that suggest this isn't just theory?
Well, look, a lot of this is obviously going to be highly classified. That's the nature of advanced military tech.
Sure.
But you can see patterns apparently going back to the 1970s.
Mm.
And there are these expired patents from the 90s mostly that describe capabilities. Well, capabilities that sound pretty unbelievable.
Expired patents. Interesting.
And then you have the whistleblowers, people who claim they've come forward alleging that this kind of technology isn't just sitting on a shelf. They're saying it's being used actively, illegally, often.
Okay, that right there, that raises some really big questions. Transparency, autonomy. Wow. So let's strip it back. How scientifically could remote neural monitoring even be possible? What's the basic idea?
Okay, so the absolute foundation is just basic biology.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you do, moving, thinking, seeing, hearing, all of it, is controlled by electrical signals.
In the brain, in the nervous system?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tiny little electrical currents flowing along your nerves.
Okay, I'm with you so far. Electricity in the body.
Right. And here's the key physics bit. Anytime you have an electrical current moving through a conductor, and your nerves are conductors,
It creates a field.
it always creates an electromagnetic field, always. And that field radiates outwards from the nerve. It's like a little broadcast signal.
Broadcasting. So if it's putting out a signal, does that mean something could potentially, receive that signal, pick it up?
That's the core idea.
Mm.
If you can accurately read that electromagnetic field that's radiating out, you can theoretically work backwards. You can figure out the strength and the direction of the tiny electrical currents that created the field in the first place.
Is there any tech we already know about that does something like this, even in a basic way?
Yeah, think about an EEG, an electroencephalogram.
Right, the cap with all the sensors they put on your head in hospitals.
Exactly. Those sensors are literally reading the electromagnetic fields produced by your brain activity. Now, granted, EEG needs direct contact. It's pretty crude compared to what we're discussing.
But the principle is there, reading the brain's electrical fields.
The principle is absolutely there. The huge leap is doing it remotely, without contact, and with much, much higher fidelity. And that takes some serious technological jumps.
Okay, so let's talk about those jumps. The first one you mentioned is hypersensitive sensors. What makes these so different?
Well, the progress has just been immense. Science has gotten incredibly good at building sensors that can detect really, really tiny changes in electromagnetic fields
Tiny changes, okay.
and with really high resolution.
Yeah.
So the better the sensors, the more sensitive they are. And this is linked to the processing power, too.
Yeah.
The further away you can be from the source, from the brain, and still pick up meaningful signals.
How far away are we talking?
Dr. Horton even speculates about, like, a helmet that doesn't even touch your head, still being able to read these complex signals. That's the kind of sensitivity leap we might be looking at.
A helmet that doesn't touch you. That's quite a thought.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned processing power. So you've got these super sensitive sensors collecting maybe huge amounts of data. You need something to make sense of it all, right? That's the second advance. Explosive computing power.
Indispensable. Absolutely crucial. The sheer increase in computing power over the last few decades is staggering.
And that lets you do what with the signals?
It lets you analyze them incredibly quickly, decompose them. Even if you have lots of different brain signals overlapping, which you always do, powerful computers can potentially untangle them, pull out the specific patterns you're looking for. It turns noise into information.
Okay. Decompose the signals. Can you give us an analogy for that? How does that work?
Sure. Think about your voice. Voice analysis software. When you speak, you create a sound wave. It seems like one thing, right? But a computer can take that single sound wave and break it down. It finds all the different frequencies, the different pitches and tones that are mixed together to make your unique voice.
Right, like a voice print. You see those graphs sometimes, the different frequency bars moving.
Exactly. That's decomposition. And it's not new tech, fundamentally. Telephones have been doing a version of this for ages.
How so?
Well, your voice, the sound wave, gets converted into an electromagnetic signal. That signal gets transmitted, maybe broken down in transit, and then it has to be reassembled back into sound at the other end so the person can hear you.
Ah, okay. Converting, transmitting, reassembling.
And the mathematical tool that lets you do this decomposition, breaking a complex wave into its simple frequency parts, is called a Fourier transform. It's a cornerstone of signal processing.
Fourier transform. Got it.
And here's the really interesting part. This doesn't just work for sound waves. It works for any electromagnetic wave. Visible light, radio waves, microwaves. All of them can be analyzed and broken down into their unique pattern of frequencies, like a fingerprint for that specific wave.
Okay, so connect that back to the brain for me. Our brains are putting out these invisible electromagnetic waves.
Right, all the time.
Yeah.
Generated by that neural electrical activity.
So if you have those super sensitive sensors we talked about and that massive computing power,
then theoretically, yes, you could capture those invisible brain waves and use something like a Fourier transform to decompose them, break them down into their unique frequency pattern.
creating a brain print.
Exactly, a brain print. And it would be incredibly unique to you, highly individual.
Why so individual? Are our brains really that different electrically?
Because the way your specific neural circuits are wired up is unique. It's shaped by everything you've ever experienced, everything you've learned, the order you learned it in, your entire life, essentially, creates this incredibly complex, unique pattern of connections. That pattern dictates the precise nature of the electromagnetic fields you generate.
So my brain print reflects my life history in a way.
In a very real electrical way, yes.
Okay, that's moving into some pretty profound territory. If our experiences create a readable signature, and this is where it shifts, isn't it? From just detection, which is amazing enough,
Yeah.
to, well, influence, control.
Yes, this is where the implications get much, much starker.
Let's start with something Dr. Horton mentions called muscle pulsing. It sounds almost crude, but still disturbing. What is that?
The idea here is that you could send electromagnetic pulses into someone's body, target specific muscles or the nerves controlling them,
To do what?
to make them contract, jerk, move involuntarily, remotely. Dr. Horton uses this pretty graphic example of electroshocking a dead frog's leg to make it kick. It shows the principle.
Yeah.
External electromagnetic energy can hijack the body's systems and cause physical movement, bypassing the brain's own commands.
Why would someone do that? Harassment, testing.
It's described as possibly both. A way to harass someone, destabilize them, or maybe to test the targeting systems, calibrate the technology.
Wait, that's physical control, direct muscle activation. Creepy, but maybe understandable mechanically. What about the deeper level? Thoughts,
Yet,
emotions.
this is the really insidious possibility. If you can read someone's unique brain print,
Yes.
what if you could then generate that exact same complex electromagnetic pattern and radiate it back onto their head?
Radiate their own brain print back at them. What would that do?
Theoretically, if the pattern is precise enough, it could force the electrical currents inside their brain to flow in that specific way, the way they flow when having a particular thought or feeling.
So, you could potentially make someone think something or feel something, control their limbs through their brain signals, not just direct muscle pulsing.
That is the potential capability being described, direct neural influence.
Okay, wait. Making a whole limb jerk, say, by just blasting one side of the brain. Maybe that's, I don't know, simpler, more general.
Plausibly, you might just need to stimulate the motor cortex broadly, making the left side of the body twitch by hitting the right hemisphere. Maybe that pattern is similar enough across people.
But influencing a specific complex thought or a subtle emotion? That sounds incredibly difficult. The signals must be way more complex, right?
Absolutely. Immensely more complex. You'd need those hypersensitive sensors working at peak performance to even capture the incredibly detailed, layered signal of a specific thought.
And the computing power again?
Massive amounts. The source material, Dr. Horton's analysis, suggests it might take, say, a week of intense computer processing just to fully deconstruct one complex thought pattern.
A week to decode it.
Before you could even attempt to regenerate that precise signal and beam it back to try and, steer someone's thoughts or feelings, It highlights just how complex, true, nuanced mind influence would be. It's not flipping a switch.
Which brings us back to the people making these claims. Understanding how technologically challenging this is, but also how it might be possible. It changes how you hear those claims, doesn't it?
It really should.
What about something like reading subvocal speech? That sounds pure sci-fi. What is it?
So subvocal speech isn't audible speech. It's when you're thinking in words, maybe silently rehearsing something or thinking a password.
Like talking inside your head.
Exactly. And sometimes, even when you do that, your vocal cords or maybe muscles in your throat or lips make tiny, tiny movements. Involuntary. No sound, but there's micro movement.
Okay.
The theory, according to Dr. Horton, is that with highly specialized, extremely precise equipment, maybe radiating the throat or thyroid area and reading the reflections or vibrations, you could potentially detect those tiny movements and reconstruct the words being thought, even though they were never spoken aloud.
Reading thoughts by reading micromuscle movements in the throat.
Essentially, yes. That's the concept.
So putting all this together, the fields, the sensors, the computing, the potential for influence, even reading unspoken thoughts. What's the main message we should take away when we hear people describe these kinds of experiences?
I think the core message, the one Dr. Horton really emphasizes, is don't immediately jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
Meaning, when someone reports that their limbs are moving against their will, or they feel thoughts aren't their own, or their emotions are being manipulated, or even that someone is reading their silent thoughts, resist the reflex to just label them as mentally ill. Instead, seriously consider the possibility they might be describing encounters with extremely advanced, likely classified military-grade technology.
And the military connection is key here, isn't it? Why focus there?
Well, think about the scale of the military intelligence complex. The funding is enormous.
Yeah.
The research scope is vast.
And they're likely way ahead of what we know publicly.
The common estimate is something like 15 to 20 years ahead of civilian technology. And crucially, military tech is ultimately designed for use against human adversaries.
Which implies human testing.
It implies a need to understand how this technology interacts with human beings. Dr. Horton makes the point that this often means human test subjects, sometimes completely unaware. It's a disturbing thought, but logical if the goal is tech that affects people.
That secrecy aspect is huge, too. If it's classified, we can't easily verify anything.
Exactly. It creates this vacuum where claims are hard to prove and dismissal is easy. It really damages trust.
You know, it's funny how technology evolves. Things like cars or computers or mobile phones, they probably sounded completely fantastical a century or two ago.
Absolutely. Science fiction becoming everyday reality is a repeating pattern.
And we have had big public projects aimed at the brain, haven't we? Didn't Barack Obama announce something?
Yes, the Human Brain Project. A massive, publicly funded initiative explicitly aiming to map and decode the human brain.
So if that's the public goal,
then the idea that classified programs might already be achieving some level of decoding, reading thoughts, influencing emotions, it shifts from sounding crazy to sounding like a potential horrific, cutting-edge crime. Using tech we just don't know about.
The brain print idea really sticks with me. Our thoughts being potentially legible, it changes everything about identity.
It poses fundamental questions about the privacy of the mind, doesn't it?
So let's try and wrap this deep dive up. What's the single most important takeaway here?
I think it's realizing that the underlying science isn't magic. We know about electromagnetic fields from nerves. We know about Fourier transforms for analyzing signals.
Okay.
Combine that known physics with the incredible exponential growth we've seen in sensor technology, sensitivity, resolution, and in computing power.
And suddenly, what sounds like science fiction, like remote neural monitoring,
it starts to have a plausible scientific basis. It might seem impossible to us now, but impossible could just mean highly classified and decades ahead of us.
So it's about keeping an open but critical mind.
Precisely.
All right, as we finish, here's something for you, our listeners, to think about. If this kind of classified technology is real and potentially being used, how does that change things?
Yeah, how does it fundamentally alter our ideas about personal freedom, privacy, even just what it means to be human, to have your own thoughts and feelings?
What does it mean for trust in your own perceptions, your own mind, if it could potentially be influenced by forces you can't see or detect? Something to definitely mull over.